everybody, welcome back to the homestead. Well, we're working on the greenhouse again today. It's a nice enough day that we can work outside. The temperature is nice, although yesterday it rained a couple of inches. We weren't able to work on it yesterday, and it created some pretty muddy, mucky conditions out here, but we're gonna work through it.
Yeah, as long as the temperature's warm enough, we'll be out here working because we need to get this done so that we can get a jump start on our spring planting.
Now, we've already done a few videos that show the beginning steps of this greenhouse build. Make sure you check those out. But to catch you all up, this is our second greenhouse. We're gonna be using this for growing food in raised bed gardens and some containers during the fall, winter, and spring months. Our first greenhouse we use primarily to start plants. We start those plants to plant in our own gardens, but we also take them to the farmer's market and sell a bunch of them there. But there's so much crossover in time that we're not able to use one greenhouse to both grow our food and start all of our plants.
So we got this kit from growersolution.com. It's the same kit that we used for our first greenhouse. It's 16 feet by 32 feet. And we're just having a good time putting it up. It's going up so easily. I highly recommend these kits.
Now, these kits are easy enough for just Kevin and I to put up by ourselves. We're going to be showing you that through this entire build. It's just Kevin and I. Pretty simple, but we're also hoping that these videos that we're doing can help you if you get your own greenhouse.
Right. So far we've put in the side poles. In the last video, we actually put up the hoops. And in today's video, we're going to get started on putting on the baseboards and maybe even some more. We just need to see how fast things go.
We also decided to line the entire bottom of this greenhouse with a woven weed fabric that we've been using in our gardens, which have been fantastic.
So let's get started. We're going to start by putting the baseboards along the bottom of the greenhouse. Alright, so we're going to start putting up these baseboards. Now for these we're using 2x6 pressure treated lumber. You really want to use pressure treated lumber because it is going to be, in a lot of humidity and it's going to be touching the ground, and so you really just want to use pressure treated lumber. Basically these are going to connect to the side poles with these brackets right here. These will just slide over the pole and then they'll connect to the boards. Now here we have two separate boards, and they're going to be butted up against each other so that they line up right even with this pole. Now we're going to start at the center of the greenhouse and work our way toward the ends. That way, when we get to the ends, if they stick over a little bit, we can cut off the end versus having to try to troubleshoot something in the middle somewhere. The one thing that you always need to be keeping in mind when you're putting together one of these greenhouses is there anything that's going to stick out and hurt the plastic when you put it on? So that's what we need to keep in mind. We don't know yet if we're going to need to cut any of these or not, but if we do, we'll have to cut some off the end. So I'm going to just put these in with some deck screws. You do want to make sure that when you're using pressure treated lumber, you use screws that are rated to be used with pressure treated lumber. Otherwise, if they're not, they'll just rust through a lot faster. So we're just going to put a screw in here. Like that. And now once we get all of these done, we'll actually come back and we'll put a screw through this bracket into the side pole so that there's no way these can lift up. Alright, now that we have the two center boards attached, we're here at the front end of the greenhouse. And you can see when we put this one into place that this board sticks out just a little bit past the pole. If we were to leave it like this when we put the plastic on, there's a chance that this would rip the plastic. So I'm going to just take a pencil and we're just going to draw a line like that. And we're just going to cut that amount of the board off. Now that we have that cut to the right length, we'll just take another one of these brackets. Now on this bracket, I've actually straightened out one end, and that's so that that will go like this on that end board. Well, we had to kind of call our day to an abrupt end yesterday because we got rained out. All of a sudden it just started to pour, and this time of year that rain is cold. So we had to get in the house. But we're back out today. We did finish up putting the baseboards all the way along the bottom of the greenhouse yesterday, and today we're about to start on what's called the hip boards.
So the hip boards go on just like the baseboards, except they're up right where the bend starts on the hoops. So that's what we're gonna do next.
All right, we've got all of the hip boards on. So now we have the baseboards on both sides of the greenhouse. We have the hip boards up here on both sides of the greenhouse. Now the reason that you need to have boards in both spots on this type of greenhouse is because this is where the roll-up sides will go. So you'll basically have your piece of plastic that goes all the way over the greenhouse, and we're going to put a track here in one of the next steps coming up. And the plastic for the top will actually attach here. From here on down, the plastic will be loose, and there'll be the pole that you use to wind it up. So your roll-up sides, basically the ventilation that you'll have is the space between these two boards. So hopefully that helps just for you to understand a little bit why you need to have both sets of boards.
Well, now that we have the hip boards and the baseboards done, it is time to put up the end wall kits.
Yeah, so the end walls are basically a series of metal poles that will frame out where the door is going to go. Now on this greenhouse, we're actually going to have a door on the front and the back. Our current greenhouse, we only put one on the front, and we've regretted that pretty much since we put it up. In fact, after we're done building this greenhouse, we're going to go back and redo our original one so that we have a door on the back as well. It'll just be a lot better for ventilation. Even with the roll-up sides, it would be really nice to be able to have the wind be able to blow through and cool things down front to back as well. So I think this greenhouse in general is going to be able to have a lot better ventilation than our first one. So we're going to get started measuring back here. We'll show you guys what we need to do. So the first thing that we need to do is measure and find the center mark between our two sides. And we'll mark that down on the ground. That way we can figure out where our door is going to go. So we're going to find that center mark to start with. Alright, so now that we found our center mark between our poles, we're going to find exactly where we need to put our upright poles for the door. In our case, we're using a 36-inch wide storm door, so we need an extra inch of space around the door. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our center mark, and we're going to measure 18.5 inches on both sides of that mark, and we'll make a mark there so that we know where to put our uprights for the door. Alright, now that we have those marks on the ground, we can start installing the actual hardware for the door. Now let's walk down to the other end of the greenhouse because we actually installed that end earlier today so that we knew exactly what we were doing before we showed you guys. So it'll make more sense if I can just show you down there what we're about to do. Okay, so here is the basic end wall kit that we're going to be installing down on the other end as well. Really what we're installing here is two square poles that run on both sides of the door, and then another square pole here at the top, and then these baseboards down at the bottom. Now these square poles on the sides are actually secured at the bottom by a pole that runs down into the ground, and these slide over the top so that they can't move side to side. That'll make more sense when we get down on the other end. So let's go back down there and I'll show you how we install those. All right, so I've got my mark down here on the weed fabric. So the first thing I'm going to do is just burn a hole big enough for this round pipe to go in. Now, on our last video when I was burning holes, I got a lot of questions about the torch that I'm using. I thought these were fairly common, but I guess a lot of people had questions about it. So this is just a butane torch that I picked up at Walmart in the plumbing section. To me, the butane works a little better than the little propane torches. It just seems to be more wind resistant. So I like it, it's handy to use, and it's refillable. All right, so now that we have that, we're going to take our ground stake here. We're actually going to just pound this into the ground. And get it started a little bit, and then I'm going to just use my level to make sure that we're going in, you know, fairly straight. All right, and that's pretty good. Now, all that this is for is so that our square post will slide over this, and it just makes it so that the bottom of that square post can't move side to side. So now we're going to install another one of these over on our other mark, and then we'll be ready to put our square poles over the top. All right, so now I have both of my ground stakes in. Now, one little trick that I like to use to help things just, you know, go a little smoother is I have these pieces that I cut off from the other side that we did, and I slide that over, and this is how you can kind of double check your measurement, because now if everything is right, from here to here should be 36 inches, or maybe just a tiny bit over 36 inches, and that way you'll know your space for your door is going to be correct. So if I measure here, I'm right on 36 inches, which should be good. So that's just a double, way to double check before you. I even do that before I pound these all the way into the ground in case I need to move them a little bit. So always best to double check. All right, so now that these are in the right spot, we can start putting our upright poles up. Part of your end wall kit is going to be 2 of these square poles. Now on one end, it's pre-drilled with some holes. When you install these, that will end up being at the top of your greenhouse. But for right now, you actually want to put this pole upside down. And I'll show you why in a second. So we're going to put that in, we're going to slide it over the round pole that we just put in the ground. And then we're going to mark up here where we're going to cut. These are supplied too long because, again, during the leveling process, your greenhouse maybe end up being a little taller or a little shorter than what ours is. So they give you some room here to, make up for that difference. So we're going to put that in. We're going to mark just below our beam here. And then that will be the right spot. Now again, that's why you want this pole upside down to begin with, so that you don't accidentally cut off this top area where these holes are pre-drilled. You want to cut off the bottom. And then we'll do the same thing with the other side, and we'll be ready to put both of these on. All right, so now that that's cut to the right length, we're going to actually attach it with the bracket that came along with it. So that will actually go down into the ground a little bit so that it lines up with our bracket here. And at this point, I'm not too worried about it being perfectly level. That will kind of work itself out when we bring our door over, which will be the very next step. So for now, I'm just trying to get this loosely up here, and we're not going to tighten this bracket down yet. All right, so same thing on this side. This just slides over the stake that we put in the ground, and then we attach the bracket up at the top. Okay, now this one you can see is really not very level, but that's okay. These move quite a bit, and they'll move in with the door, so it's really not a big deal at this point. There we go. Now we'll go get our door, and we'll start putting that in place, and these will all move just into place where they need to be. So there we go. That's how our door will go on. We'll push this over and then we'll tack this into place and we'll be able to show you guys here from the outside. All right, so now we have our door completely hung on those upright poles. The last thing that we need to do as far as installing the door for today is to put another pole across the top. So this will actually go up here at the top of the door. It will actually just go on with these 90-degree brackets that will attach to these and to the upright poles and hold everything nice and secure. All right, so that door is completely installed. We now have a door at the front and the back, which is awesome. Now right now these doors don't have handles on them. I still need to install the handles later on, and they actually have a little bracket on them that hold them shut. And it is really, really windy out today, so we're just gonna leave that bracket on so that these stay nice and shut, nothing's gonna happen to them. So the next thing that we're gonna do today is install the baseboard here at the front.
Now these baseboards are going to run from the inside of the pole to the inside of this door frame. So we just need to measure how long that board needs to be so we can cut it ahead of time. Looks like 73 inches exactly. And just like the other boards, we're going to be using pressure treated 2x6s. Okay, now we're going to attach these with these 90-degree brackets. We'll put one here attached to the poles here by the door, and then one over here attached to this pole here.
Well, I think that was another awesome day's work on the greenhouse. I can't believe how quickly this thing is going up and just how easily this kit is to install.
And it really has been amazing that the two of us have been able to just work together alone to put this up. I think it's pretty awesome that this is easy enough just for two people.
Right. So we're really down to just 2 steps left. We have to put the track up that the wiggle wire will go in, and then it's time to put the plastic on. So it is really coming together quickly, and we can't wait to start getting some raised beds built and some plants growing in there. In fact, I think tomorrow we're going to be starting some seeds in the house.
Yeah. So you guys, don't forget to check out growerssolution.com if you're interested in looking at this greenhouse kit. If you're enjoying these videos and enjoying our channel, make sure that you are subscribed, and also share these videos with all the people who you think may enjoy them. And until next time, thank you so much for stopping by the homestead. Take care and God bless.
God bless.